Welcome to the Dream Build Repeat podcast. I'm your host, Casey Sharperson, founder of Sharperson Solutions, a training and development firm where we work with corporations with their professional and personal development. And then we also work with entrepreneurs to communicate their value, show up with confidence in their entrepreneurial journey. I am thrilled to be partnering with Cindy Dennis Ministries and On Purpose with Passion to bring you the Lady Boss series. And in this series, we're talking all about entrepreneurship. And today we are kicking it off with my entrepreneurial journey. And this is an interesting one because I am recently in full-time entrepreneurship, although I have been an entrepreneur for a very long time. I talk about in my book, Dream Build Repeat, that my very first time selling something, I was 9 years old and my grandfather gave me some fried peanuts. He used to live in Virginia, Spotsylvania, Virginia specifically, and he would go and sell items at the farmer's market on Saturdays. And so one day he said, "Hey Casey, do you want to sell some peanuts?" I said, "Sure." And I started doing that for $2.50 per Ziploc bag. I sold them at the beauty shop and anywhere that I could. So that was my first foray into entrepreneurship. But it's been an interesting transition to go from selling peanuts to selling Girl Scout cookies, which was not my own venture, but sales nonetheless, until ultimately I got into entrepreneurship through speaking. And while I was in college, I had a mentor of mine, and she told me this years before, but she kept saying, "Casey, you really should speak. I know so many people that would be impacted by your story and impacted by who you are." And it took a while for me to actually receive that information and say yes. And I don't know if you can relate to that, if that somebody has spoken into your life and said, "Hey, I see this in you, I see this skill, I see this over you." But then there's a version of self-doubt, and that was something that really impacted me and really slowed down, I think, my process in fully accepting the call. But with God's grace, He finally gave me, I think, the confidence to start moving forward in speaking. So I started speaking professionally about 10 years ago. And through that time and through that transition, my business has gone through different layers of offerings, different lessons, and different tips and tricks that I've kind of gathered along the way. And I wanted to share those with you, especially if you have either been considering starting your entrepreneurial journey or you have been in the journey, in the grind, and you're wondering, when is it going to be my time? When is it going to be my time to have the success? When is it going to be my time to be on that platform? When is it going to be my time to make this amount of money? I want to just share some encouragement with you. Now, my journey into full-time entrepreneurship was a surprising one. For the last probably 5 or 6 years, I was tracking towards doing that. Like, my initial plan was to do full-time entrepreneurship, but then I got kind of comfortable in the fact that through my full-time job, like my 9-to-5 job, I had finally gotten kind of a handle on things. And I said, okay, I can pay my bills now. Okay, people are starting to see my value within the workplace. And then all these other things that I do on the side are like nice additions if I want to do a trip. But there's a very big difference between wanting to have income for a trip versus funding your entire life, okay? I just want to share that. And one thing about entrepreneurship, especially full-time entrepreneurship, that I have noticed and have seen is that the money is different. If you're trying to replace, let's say you were making $60,000 or $70,000 at a 9-to-5, that is very different than making $60,000 or $70,000 in your business, because there are expenses, there are other things that come along with it. And so there has to be a framing around not only what you want to make, but why you're doing this. And this matters, and it's a little bit cliche to ask, what is your why? Everybody asks that question, but it genuinely is important, because if your why is not because this is what you feel like God is calling you to do in this season, it is going to be so much easier to quit and to stop and to pause when you don't see the results that you're looking for, when things don't happen in the timing that you want. Because again, as a full-time entrepreneur, you are the one that gets up and decides, this is the work that I'm going to do. You are the one that gets up and decides that I'm going to work from this time to this time, or that I'm going to take this break, or that I'm going to go on this trip, or whatever it is. You get to make those decisions. And through that, being self-directed, then you also have such incredible opportunities to make an impact that you wouldn't have been able to make otherwise. So no, this is not a chance to shame you if you are not a full-time entrepreneur. No, it's not a chance to shame you if you don't feel like you've been doing everything that you could be doing. This is really just a call to inspire you to say yes to you, to say yes to your vision and to your dream. And the purpose of Dream, Build, Repeat, the podcast and the book is to really set the vision, set the intention, and then make it happen. This is what matters. You can dream about something all you want, but if there's no execution, it's going to stay in your journal. This dream is going to stay in your journal, and then you're going to look off into the distance and see that somebody else is doing the thing that you have always wanted to do. Somebody else has said yes. They are moving fearlessly or fearfully with God into what could have been for you, right? And so my first observation, tip, recommendation is that it is so necessary for you to be comfortable and confident in being uncomfortable. There are going to be decisions that you have to make, that you need to make, roles that you need to take on that you didn't necessarily expect or anticipate. And my surprise entry into full-time entrepreneurship was one that came not entirely as a shock, but a little bit. If I had to lay out my path would have been to save out X amount of money, save up probably a year worth of savings, kind of have a plan, a book of business, all of that, because these are things that you do when you move in wisdom, when you know that you're going to make a leap from full-time employment in a traditional 9-to-5 to full-time self-employment. And mine was a little bit different than that. I ended up being laid off at the top of the year, and I had a moment where I was in shock, obviously, but then the next moment I knew, because 2 months before that, I had already had a plan laid out that God had revealed to me. I was journaling and I was taking notes of all the things that I wanted to do in this next year. And I remember praying and saying, God, I don't have capacity to do all of this. Where am I going to get all of this time? And then a few short weeks later, I came upon 40 to 50 to 60 extra hours that I didn't have before, and I was able to step into full-time entrepreneurship. And this is the second point, this has truly been a faith walk that I had not ever anticipated. When you are walking in faith as an entrepreneur, whether it's full-time, part-time, you're testing things out, you are working and walking in conjunction, in step with God. And as you make that decision to do that, you're not always going to have the answers. You're not always going to know how things are going to work out. You're not always going to anticipate expenses that pop up or opportunities that appear. But it is still a choice and an opportunity and an observation. And lastly, my third point about full-time entrepreneurship and something to consider and to remember is the importance of tracking your time, knowing where you're spending your time and what makes the most financial sense to spend your time is going to be a key. I talk about this a lot when I work with those that are stepping into entrepreneurship, those that are launching a new brand or launching a new business. When they are thinking about how to spend their time, I always ask, what are you doing for money-making activities? There has to be a balance between money-making activities, admin, and fun. It just has to exist. When you work for someone else, you have the luxury of deep diving. You have the luxury of digging into projects and getting really into the nitty-gritty and laying things out and perfecting and perfecting and perfecting. And you can do that because you know that every 2 weeks your check is going to come. As an entrepreneur, you don't necessarily get that opportunity because you have to balance not only this project that you have going or this project that you have coming up for execution, but there also needs to be this constant flow of finding new opportunities, following up, those are money-making, income-producing activities. So having that balance between things that you need to do, things that would be nice, and things that you probably should do are what matters. So those are my 3 tips for those that are looking to step into full-time entrepreneurship. And know this, that I believe in you, and I am thrilled to hear about your journeys and to hear about how God is walking through you as you are the hands and feet of Jesus here on this earth. So if you have questions, always happy to answer those. And if you are looking to start writing, start speaking, start leveraging your voice in a manner of getting your story out there, I am so happy to work with you and have a conversation with you about what that looks like in coaching or through mentorship or something like that. So thank you for joining here, and thank you to the On Purpose team for the opportunity to partner with the Dream Build Repeat platform. Feel free to connect with me. I'm super easy to find online, Casey Sharperson. You'll find all of that information in the information below, and I'll see you next time. Take care.